Hello, everyone, and good morning. Welcome to our live feed update for July 24th. I'm your host, Taran Armstrong, and with me today is Bobby. How you doing, Bobby?
I'm good, Taran. One thing I did find out from people online is that apparently I say yeah, no, or no, yeah a lot in my conversations with you. So I'm going to be working on that today. If I do that, please call me out. It's something I'm working on because I need to get that vocabulary out of my system. So call me out, Taran, if I say yeah, no to start a sentence.
You know what? People, no matter what you say, they're gonna have some pet peeve about your verbiage. So you gotta just be you,
I
and
know.
not be bothered by them.
I'm not, but I found it hilarious because once I went back and rewatched it, I really do say that a lot. So I want to work on it.
Yeah, no. That was me. That was me trying to do. All right.
All
So
right,
we
good
are here
job.
to update you on everything that happened yesterday on the Big Brother 21 live feeds. It was day 35 in the house, and it was actually pretty interesting, I think. I thought I was gonna be able to have a nice, easy morning. Not a whole lot to prepare. But there actually was a lot of movement happening and a lot of pieces shifting around. So we've got a lot to talk about here.
Yeah, lots of stuff to talk about. I didn't do it that time, almost did. Yeah, no, lots of stuff to talk about. A lot of moving parts. I'm working on it, Taryn. It's hard.
See, you've done it. You've now done it to yourself. You've
I
pointed
know.
it out, and now people are
I
going to
know.
listen for it.
Dang it.
And yeah.
Dang it. All right. All right, let's do this.
All right. Well, we start the day. A few different storylines across the day. One of the storylines is Christy, and this really ties into a lot of what we've been talking about with Cliff's decision to nominate Bella for Christy to try to get an in with her. It does seem to be working right now. In particular, that this six does seem to be fracturing. Christy is talking to Sis about how she really does want Jackson gone kind of soon, and that she would want to put Jackson up with Holly when the time comes. And so they're talking about that. Sis's response to most game talk is, "Yeah, but do we have to be gaming right now? I just want to. Can we just talk about Instagram? I just want to be an Instagram influencer. That's my dream, and I would love to talk about that, Christy."
I can only imagine what her Instagram is like because she is just the most interesting person in the house. Instagram must be going off, but yeah, no, she is not one to want to talk any type of game, and it's really frustrating to watch because she just has no passion to talk game at all, especially when it comes to someone like Jackson. I feel like between Jack and Jackson, she doesn't want to talk game about them at all.
She'll pipe up and talk crap for like a good minute or so, and then she'll lose energy again and stop wanting to talk game. And I'm really not kidding when I say that, like, she genuinely said she wanted to be an Instagram influencer. Like, that's not me exaggerating.
Yeah, it's there's no way. I just don't see it in the cards, sis. I think she could do a lot in life, but I think Instagram influencer might not be one of them.
Yeah. It's you never know.
You never know. You never know. Hey, she's got the platform now to fall back on. But I don't see the personality.
I mean, she's gonna be on the show until final three at least, so she's got plenty of time to build an audience.
Yeah, she's got all the time in the world.
I mean, when it comes down to Jack and Christy and these people and Sis, I think she's gonna start to look like one of the more palatable people. I don't know.
Barely. At best, she's gonna be the most palatable person, but that's not really saying much of this house.
Yeah. All right, so that's happening there. Cliff is going to talk with Nicole and Kat about the vote, and Kat is advising them to keep Jack around, that they can't make a move yet. Jess is going to walk in as well, and they start talking about working together. They're further discussing the vote. Jess is also against voting Jack out this week, talking about how they have to trust Christy. They have to trust that that she is with them and that she doesn't want to go to the end with the couples. And so, it's very much, a discussion about that. And they talk more around like, okay, well, if we can trust that we can get Christy to target somebody like Jackson before they get to the 6, then we might actually this might be the best decision, that we might be voting to keep Jack, and that's maybe the right move. They talk more about working together moving forward, and how they will work it if the 6 does break up, and that would be good, and they can be working together, and they even come up with a name for an alliance, and that Kat calls them Cliff's Angels, and Cliff says, no, please don't name it that.
Don't put that karma on me. Do not do that. We've seen how that works in the past. Do not put that on me, Cliff was saying.
Yeah, he's like, we are equal partners. I don't feel like it's a good thing to have any one particular person make it seem like they're in charge, because that's not the case. We're equal. And Kat's just like, no, it's really good. And Jess is like, yeah, I love it. And he's like, no.
We've seen Austin's Angels. We've seen in season 13. Why am I blanking? What's the guy's name for his Angels?
Keith.
Yeah, Keith's Angels. Yeah, you do not want to have that kind of karma and blood on your hands, because we see what happens when that happens.
Yes, but he gets steamrolled over by the passion in the women in the room, and he is unable to prevent this from becoming the name. And so the new alliance, Cliff's Angels, has been born, and they even do a little pose with the guns, and Cliff stands behind them, and there we go, Cliff's Angels. It's alive.
Yeah, it's alive and well. I just dig it. I did it. So yeah, they really bugged me that they're allowing this to happen. Cliff, you should know better as a super fan. Do not let this happen to yourself.
Yeah. What can you do, though? What can you do? You can't be too adamant about it. So why don't you want to work with us, Cliff? Why are you afraid? You don't trust us? You don't trust us to keep the name secret? Is that what's going on? All right. So Kat is going to go to Christy. And now Kat, we've been talking about her. She's been slowly improving her game, I think, over the course of the season. And she now is in a position where I still would prefer her to vote Jack out of the game. I think that's her best move here. She doesn't think so. She thinks the safer move is to continue to be in with Christy, and that may be the better move. I don't think it's nearly as black and white as it has been in the past, because both her and Cliff have been doing a very good job of working their way in and weaseling their way in to this 6-person alliance and getting it to fracture apart. And so I have to give Kat some credit here. There's also going to be some mistakes she makes in regards to Holly later on in the day, but she is going to talk with Christy for now and talk about how she doesn't like Jackson. I just maybe it's a mistake for me to say this, but I just really don't even want him to make jury, and there's only one more week before jury. And Christy agrees. She says, I don't like him. He disgusts me. I don't like how he treats women. I don't like how he treats you. I don't like how he treats Holly. Ever since he got on Slop, he's been such a slob, and he's been so miserable, and he expects everyone else to cook for him, and then he eats all of the food. It's ridiculous. And so Christy says, and you know what else? Jackson was the rogue vote. Jackson was the rogue vote that week. And Kat says, no, I was just talking to Cliff about it, and he didn't, and she says, and I told Cliff about it the other day. And Kat was like, oh, I was just talking to Cliff about it, and he didn't say anything. And she was like, well, yeah, because I promised him, I made him swear not to tell anyone. And Kat starts explaining, because in that, Cliff's Angels thing, he was telling them, don't tell people where your vote lies, because there's a rogue vote person out there, and if they know what the vote count is, then they might feel comfortable casting a rogue vote and trying to blame it on you guys. And so Kat tries to explain that Cliff told them that, but of course this is Kat trying to explain it, so she doesn't explain it very well, and Christy misunderstands at first, like, oh wait, is Cliff trying to flip the vote? Is Cliff trying to keep Bella? Can I trust Cliff, Kat? Can I trust him? And Kat's like, yes, no, he wants Bella gone, and you can trust him. And Christy's like, okay, good, because I'm getting really emotional right now. I don't know even why I'm getting emotional. I trust him so much, and I love Cliff so much. I want to be able to trust him. She starts crying about this, and she starts talking about how much she loves him and how much she regrets voting him out, and all of these things. I just feel it again, just like people have been so down on this move, but it made some genuine inroads here with Christy. She has no reason to fake cry and lie about it to Kat, and certainly Christy is subject to change her feelings on people, but I mean, because she's so subject to change on people, I think that's why, one of the reasons why this 6 isn't as solid as we might fear, especially considering all the talk about targeting Jackson soon. So very, very interesting stuff coming from this conversation.
Yeah, a couple things to pull from that. Also, I think they're going by Hogs Honeys now instead of Cliff's Angels. So Hogs Honeys has a little better ring to it. And
well,
maybe
Jess suggested Hogs Honeys.
Okay,
but...
I heard that was a thing, so I threw that out there.
Because Cliff said no to Cliff's Angels,
yes.
And then so Jess was like, what about Hogs Honeys? She made a couple of other names, but I'm pretty sure Cliff's Angels was
what they stuck
the
with?
ultimate decider here.
Okay.
But really, I mean, he really just told them no to all of them.
To all, yeah. Yeah, Jackson's really rubbing people the wrong way in this house, between the way he treats people because he's on slop, how he's just been treating people in general, and including the diary room. I feel like he's got a real bad knack in this house, the way he's being portrayed, because, it could be a couple things. You've alluded to he might have some kind of eating disorder. We're not sure about what's going on with that situation, but he has had some kind of problems where his anger has been coming out. And I think Christy and Kat are able to see that and try to piece things together. As far as Christy's paranoia, another situation in this house where we see Christy go absolutely berserk for no reason, freaking out. Honestly, I just don't see how she's long in this game if she continues to have these outbursts. And this time it worked out okay. Kat was able to calm her down and show that, Cliff's not working against you. Cliff wants to, work with this team going forward. He wants to get Bella out. He put her on the block. He has no reason to backstab the majority when he just put Cliff on the block for them. So the paranoia with her is so rampant and so common that I really think that this is going to eventually backfire on her in the game. Do you see there being any way that her paranoia doesn't catch up with her?
She's very overextended right now in terms of Sam and Nick are going to be talking throughout the day about her and how overextended she is and how much of a liar she is, and they plan on trying to out her game moving forward, especially if Bella leaves, and try to expose her as much as possible. Part of Bella's campaign later in the day will be talking about maybe not specifically Christy, but about the fact that Jackson and Holly are on the bottom of the 6, which is true, very true. So Kat knows that Christy's after Jackson. Cliff knows that Christy is talking a lot about Jackson. Christy has expressed these thoughts to Sis. She's talked to Tommy. Obviously, she can trust Tommy and probably trust Sis, but Sis might accidentally leak it at some point because she's Sis. But it's spreading. It's out there. Jess is aware of these things. Like, this could get back to Jackson and Holly very easily, and they are starting to worry, and we'll talk about that as well, but they're starting to realize that they haven't really been talked to for a while, and that they haven't come together as a group, and, you know, they're being left out of talks lately. And so this tension is building. It's really building, and Christy is at the heart of it all. So I could very easily see something happen here with Christy, or at the very least with this 6 blowing up. This is starting to reach a boiling point over the course of the day. There are a lot of different pieces in motion to break these 6 apart.
Honestly, if they're able to piece these parts together, Jackson and Holly I'm talking about, if they're able to piece this together, we might see a vote flip. I wouldn't rule it out completely, because if they're able to piece together that they're the, you know, biggest targets out of those 6, they might want to do a flip. It might be too little too late at this point. We saw, you know, we'll probably get to it, but we saw Bella trying to work her rounds last night, talking to people and talking game. I don't see it happening, but if something were to happen in the next 24 hours, we might be able to see something happen and turn against the 6.
Yeah, I have more hope that things will break up after this week, because I don't think that Holly and Jackson are willing to flip this week.
I don't think so either.
But there's definitely, especially at the end of this update, we have a conversation late at night with Christy and Tommy that I think is very telling in terms of where they're looking to go in the future. But we'll get there. So Christy, she's crying about how much she trusts Cliff and how much she wants to be working with him. She regrets, ever going against him. Kat is protecting Cliff's interests in this conversation, making sure that Christy knows that Cliff is trustworthy. So things are working along those lines. Kat is also going to go to Holly, and this is where I think Kat starts to overextend herself. And let me say also that I think Kat is in a little bit of trouble here. Kat has been starting to do a better job, but she's also, I think, overextending a little bit. This sort of back and forth between Christy and Holly and Jackson is very dangerous, and Cliff and Jess in particular. There are a lot of different people that could completely out Kat and make her the center of hey, she's a rat, she's running around to everyone, because she is, and it's a very tricky spot to be. It reminds me of the early days of Paul in season 18, when he was just very obviously a rat, and people were starting to be like, hey, maybe he has potential in this game. But at the time, it was still very dangerous, and he got caught multiple times and had to get bailed out by some battle backs. So having Victor come back in, meaning. So interesting stuff there with Cap. So she's going to go to Holly and talk to her about, like, hey, I'm saying this for your sake. It has nothing to do with game, but Jackson, he's talking about how hot Caitlyn is, and how he's gonna slide into her DMs, and all of this stuff. Like, and the feed's cut eventually, so we don't know the full extent of this conversation, but we hear a little bit of it from Holly later, which is why this is so dangerous. That Kat still thinks that she can turn Holly against Jackson, but it does not appear to be possible at this moment, at the very least. And the more Kat tries with Holly, the more Holly is later going to Jackson to rat Kat out about the fact that Kat is anti-Jackson, and Holly is warning Jackson not to be talking crap about Kat, on the feeds, because that's a bad look, but to be very wary of Kat, because Kat keeps trying to turn her against Jackson. So this is where Kat really needs to start being careful. Because this is one of the ways that she can get caught and exposed here. Holly is not on board with her as much as Kat thinks, and Kat, I think, is most loyal to Holly over anyone else. The same is not true for Holly. I think Holly is more loyal to Jackson here, so that's a very tricky situation for her.
it's a real lovers quarrel between Jackson and his former, girl that he was talking to at the beginning, and now the girl he's talking to now, and they know each other from outside the house. It's a real full circle kind of thing. But yeah, Kat needs to be careful. If she says the wrong thing to the wrong person, it's gonna get out. We saw that at the house meeting a couple of days ago when you had that screenshot of her eyes like bulging out, freaking out, thinking that someone was going to reveal something that she said that she's been in the middle of, because eventually it's going to come out. And I feel like if she doesn't back off or at least stop doing what she's doing, it's going to catch up to her sooner rather than later. Especially with the Holly Jackson thing. She thinks she can trust Holly, and I really think that Jackson has Holly in his back pocket. And as far as Holly, I think that she needs to let up a little bit and be willing to hear these different things coming to her, especially about Jackson, because one, we know how he talks about her when she's not in the room, and also the fact that for her game, she needs to be open to the ability of cutting him or hearing other options, because people are going to stop coming to her with information about Jackson or about other people in the house if she continues to blow them off or go tell Jackson what exactly has been said about him. So Kat needs to be careful, and I feel like Holly needs to open up more and be willing to have these conversations.
Yes. All right. So Tommy is going to talk with Christy and Cliff, and they're having a good conversation together in the boat room, hanging out, and Tommy will finally admit to being the guy that stole Orwell and hid Orwell. He admits that they stole Orwell, and that was the day that they caught him talking to himself in the boat room, and they thought maybe he was America's player, and so they hid Orwell to try and see, is he gonna freak out? Like, is he not gonna be able to complete his tasks because Orwell is gone? And Cliff's like, oh, I don't care. That's totally fine. Tommy, it was strictly strategy. We were trying to figure out if you were America's player. Cliff says, I'm just glad that it wasn't my fault. I'm just glad that it wasn't my fault. So everything's all good. But the secret's finally been revealed that they were the ones that hid Orwell.
How dare they?
They hid him with me, and I still have him.
Yeah, how dare they take that from Cliff? He is no one's America's favorite player. Let's not ever let that come back and be a thing. Don't put that out there in the universe.
Bella is going to campaign to Jackson and Holly. Now, Bella spends most of the day with Nick, discussing her plan and going over her plan. And her plan is that she wants to flip Jackson and Holly and get them to vote for her. And she's going to campaign to multiple pairs of people so that it doesn't seem like she's only going to one particular pair of people. But Jackson and Holly are her big targets here in terms of getting them to flip their vote. And so when she goes to them, she makes her campaign. She says, hey, I'm a bigger target. Jack's a bigger threat. I haven't won any competitions. Jack has won multiple competitions. He's come close to winning other competitions. This guy is dangerous, and this is your chance to take him out. She says, whereas I am not a threat, but I am a big target, and I will volunteer myself to go on the block. I will always, hold a spot on that block. I will be somebody that is targeted before you. If you vote to keep me, you can blame your vote on other people like Kat or Jess or whoever, and you can take Jack out. You can get away with it. I'll still be in the house. I'll be a number for you, and you need numbers because you're on the bottom of the six. They're gonna turn on you first, and this is what they had just been talking about. As I mentioned before, Holly was talking to Jackson about the fact that nobody was talking to them anymore and that they haven't been involved in any game talk lately. And so this is something that actually does strike a bit of a chord with them, and they do start to consider it a little bit after Bella leaves, and they start thinking like, well, maybe we need to think about this a little bit here. Ultimately, this is not going to particularly go anywhere. Holly is going to keep some of the details secret. Jackson is going to be a little more open about this conversation when he retells it. But this is something that they did briefly consider, and Bella is going to feel a little bit hopeful after the conversation.
Last night when I got off work, this was the first conversation I got to watch on After Dark when I turned on the TV. She did a great job in this situation. I felt like she brought some very good points up. To when the conversation first started, I was nervous because you could tell she was nervous and she wasn't really sure exactly what she wanted to say. She started to kind of second guess herself or kind of stumble on her words. And Jackson had the audacity to say, "Oh, it's okay. Just get it out now. This will be her trial run." Like, I was like, is he just not going to give her the time of day and not even hear her out? Like, come on, man. Like, don't be like that. And then as she progressed, she got more and more confident in what she was saying. And I thought she brought up some very, very valid reasons why she should stay. And then at the end of it, you see Jackson and Holly talking and actually considering some of the things that she was talking about. So I love this conversation. I love that she was able to bring this up. I think it might be too little too late. Maybe if we would have had this conversation earlier in the week, it would have brought up some more opinions on keeping her around. But I just feel like it's a little too late. But I'm happy that she did it, and I think she did a good job.
Yes. So she mentions that she also is going to say that she has or can get Nicole's vote, and she also says that she can get Cliff to break the tie in her favor. And now that is, of course, throwing Nicole and Cliff under the bus here. Nicole, in particular, is going to continue to have her reputation damaged by this particular comment, but Cliff remains untouched here. They don't believe Christy. When this gets back to Christy, Christy does not believe that is true and that Bella is making it up, and that Cliff would never do that because Cliff, he promised. And so Cliff is also going to, kind of preemptively combat this idea that he would break the tie in Bella's favor with Jack. He's going to talk with Jack and promise him that if it's a tie, he will vote to keep Jack, and he's ready to jump on board with them. They do believe Cliff, even though Cliff is lying to them. He says that hey, I want to work with you guys moving forward, all of this stuff. They have a conversation about it. He also warns them that Bella has some kind of plan in the works that doesn't involve Kat and Jess. And so they start talking about that as well. Like, if it doesn't involve Kat and Jess, who does it involve? Well, she was talking to Holly and Jackson, and then when Holly described the conversation, she seemed like she was leaving out some details. And so further cracks are being made and spread. And so these things are continuing to move on. Bella is going to talk with Cliff eventually later in the night, and make her pitch to him as well. And he says he's on board to make it work. He can't promise her anything because he does not want to fall in this pit if it falls. But if the things work, if everything comes together, then he is willing to be on board. And so she makes the entire same pitch that she made to Bella, to Holly and Jackson. She says that she feels like they might actually be on board. Cliff is a bit more skeptical. He feels like Jackson is absolutely the kind of person who would pretend to be on board to have the people willing to do this exposed, which is very much the case. And so he's a little more skeptical. He tells he's going to talk to Jess about the plan again after as well. Jess would also theoretically be on board if something would work in that way, especially if Jackson and Holly were the people to make it happen. Cliff is going to talk to the cameras and say, "I love Big Brother. I hope this works, but I don't think it's going to. And if it doesn't, I can't expose my spot here. I need to make sure that Christy continues to trust me. I'm willing to make the move, but it has to work, and we'll see. We'll see how it goes."
Well, and he's definitely not going to blow up his spot to Bella and trust for her to not say anything to anybody, given her reputation in the house for taking one thing and going and running with it and telling the whole house. I think he's sincere when he says if the ability is there to take that shot, I'm definitely willing to take it, but I'm not going to promise you that because he doesn't think it's possible. And right now it's not looking like it could be, but the cracks are there. You've said it yourself. The cracks are there. If things happen and people are able to put a couple things in place, we could see that crack happen, but I don't know. I have a hard time thinking it will, but man, would that be great. To finally see that side of the house face some kind of controversy, it'd be great to watch.
Yes. And so there's a lot more. There's a lot of general chit chat and like hanging out that happens throughout the day. There's a lot of talk in the have not room with Christy and Jess and Christy and Kat. As I mentioned, Jackson is going to spill a decent amount of the conversation that he had with Bella. There's a lot of talk. Anytime Bella does anything, it pretty immediately goes back to Christy, who gets upset about it. Bella is going to campaign to Tommy and to Christy and to Jess and all of these people. Those are, of course, even just from Bella's perspective, are like a smoke screen, because the real plan is to try and get Jackson and Holly. But bottom line here is that it doesn't seem like it's going to work, and most of this this hubbub is going to be for naught, but it is continuing to make cracks in this group, this 6-person thing, and Christy is going to continue to be annoyed with Jackson, who continues to eat food in the shower and just generally be unpleasant. He's when him and Holly were talking about how the people aren't talking to them, Jackson is going to be like, yeah, I've just been like, so, you know, my head has been, you know, hurting, and I've just been so out of it lately. And Holly's like, yeah, me too. I've just not been really in it. And he's like, well, you're not on slop.
He's just such a different person when he's not able to eat 35 times a day. And it's really gotten to the point where even watching him, I want to just switch the feeds because he's always going to say something negative. And I get it. Like, that house can do a number on you. But man, the guy just cannot live a normal life without being irritated whenever he can't have food. Like, I could only imagine if he had Chicken George's, you know, the rest of the summer slop situation. Oh my gosh, that guy would be out of the house in a week. He would not be able to stand it. So I honestly feel bad for Holly. I feel like that she's going to continue to, you know, get, you know, treated this way because of the fact that he's not able to eat. And the stuff with the whole eating in the shower, I'm just ready for people to start, for the production to actually do something about it. I know they won't. I know it's just going to be a slap on the wrist like it usually is, but it's breaking the rules, and it's really annoying that they allow this to happen. And in past, we've seen, you know, people get a vote, or it's just frustrating to me.
Yeah. So, you know, it's the whole situation is ridiculous, but it is definitely helping further, again, these cracks in the alliance. And Tommy is going to talk with Christy, and they're going to be talking alone, and they're again talking about the people that they trust and who they want to work with moving forward. And Christy's talking about her ideal, you know, final 4, final 5, and she mentions that she actually loves Kat. She would love to take Kat to the final 4, final 3 even. She feels like Kat, they love, Kat is woke, they say. She's woke. She's actually a lot smarter than you might think, and she's very political and woke. They really just keep saying that over and over, which is just like a little rich considering the season so far.
Yeah.
And so they talk about Kat and how Kat would be potentially a good person to take down to the end. Now. Unreported story thus far. Maybe I should have reported it. Christy has a crush on Kat. Very much so. She really finds Kat attractive, and she's talked about this with Tommy before and with Jack. And so the more attention Kat gives her, the more Christy is like yes, let's continue to bring Kat in. Let's continue to let's work with her. And so Christy is talking about, let's go to maybe even the final 3 with Kat. I feel like we are capable of beating Kat in the final 3 competition. And, God forbid she beats one of us. I'd feel comfortable sitting in the final 2 against her if she took one of us to the end. And so She's really, really starting to feel like she wants to bring Kat in. And in this discussion, she starts, okay, so if that's the final three, we bring Sis to the final four, final three, too. Like, Sis is a great option as well. Jack can come with us to the final five. And then, Holly's about. So my ideal boot order, she says. The next person I want gone, Nick. Or Jackson. Nick or Jackson are the first two. She genuinely wants to target Jackson or Nick next. Then Sam. Then Nicole. Then Jess. Then Cliff. Cliff or Jess. You can maybe swap them out. Then Holly. Then the final five is you, me, Jack, Sis, and Kat. And so Tommy agrees with that order. I mean, he says, we could bring Holly a little further. She doesn't have to go at 6 necessarily. But I think the thing that they're obviously forgetting here is that if they take the shot at Jackson next, they'll probably have to take out Holly soon after. Depending on who's the person that takes the shot at Jackson. But they both say privately together that Jackson is genuinely one of the two next targets. Of course, this is right now. Things can change, but things can change for the worse, and they can also change for the better. So these cracks are real, and they are something that I feel at the very least that Christy is definitely not willing to use her power to save Jackson if it came down to that, which means that her having her power impacts the game very, very little. And honestly, again, as I sort of proposed a few days ago, I'm starting to think it actually might be very beneficial for the instability of the house that she has this power. So again, things could go wrong, certainly, but for right now, things are looking up. There are a lot of cracks here. I think the fact that, Camp Comeback was really the thing that kept all of these people together. The second it ended, things started to fracture, and they're continuing to fracture. And Christy continues to change her mind and want to work with other people. And again, for better or for worse, I think that is going to continue to happen. And she will continue to help make the house completely fluid and unstable.
Especially if we see Jackson win HOH next week, then it's going to be like the Nick HOH all over again, where they're like, oh, good job, man. Like, oh, we're so excited. Let's do this. We're still working as a team. Like, we're going to see that happen all over again. Even though they clearly want to work against him. They clearly want to get him out. He's at the top of the pecking order along with Nick. So, there's still a lot that can unravel. I don't look too far ahead, especially since we know it's going to be a wall comp. I don't think Jackson has a chance of actually winning that, but you never know. Something could happen. Those things, you never really know, but it's not really built for a guy his size. But I really want to see how this crack goes forward. And if something were to happen and Jackson gets wind of this, maybe there can be a turnaround and someone could go against the Tommy Christy alliance side of the house. So we'll see.
Let me say this. We're looking at a wall comp. It's probably a wall comp, and it's certainly, they said it's endurance. It could be the slip and slide. But as I mentioned before, they almost always do a wall comp before jury. Mm-hmm. So I'm very much expecting a wall competition. If it's a wall competition, the potential winners, we've discussed this before, are Kat, Holly, Sis, Christy, Tommy, or Nicole, maybe. I think that if Kat wins, I think she's going to be looking to take a shot at Jackson. I really do. I think that she will be hesitant to, because it would blow up her spot, and Holly will be very opposed to it. So I'm not sure that she'd be willing to put Jackson on the block. Maybe she'd be willing to backdoor him, but also maybe not. However, I could definitely see Christy using her power to get rid of Jackson in that particular instance, or at the very least, Christy promising to help Kat with her power in the following week if Kat is worried about taking the shot herself. I think that there are a lot of options there if Kat wins, that Jackson might be a little bit in trouble. And and if not, then it'll probably be Nick and Sam on the block. I think that if Christy wins, she might be crazy enough to take the shot because she feels like she has enough backing between Cliff and Kat and the rest of the 6 shooters that don't include Jackson and Holly. I think that she might be willing to take the shot, but again, I think at that point she probably does not, and she would probably go with Nick and Sam, and then maybe then if the veto was used or something along those lines, she could maybe think about taking the shot. And then if Nicole won, the big reason why a lot of people have been like, oh, we needed to flush the power is because of the one instance where if Nicole happens to win and she takes a shot, then Christy would be able to use her power and negate Nicole's HOH. But again, I'm really feeling that Christy is happy to not use her power to save Jackson, or even to use her power to save Jack and take out maybe Jackson or something along those lines. So I do think there are a lot of decent options here moving forward, and I do think that the more likely person to go home here at this point is still Nick or Sam, but Jackson is definitely in the firing line here, and there are a lot of different possibilities that can open up.
Yeah, and I think, in my opinion, I think there's no way Tommy or Christy doesn't win the wall competition. If it's a wall competition, I think it's going to be down to those two. We saw them in the first HOH competition. They were the last two to stick in there. I really think this might be the one that Tommy wins, and I'd be really interested to see what kind of moves he'd make. I don't know if he's willing to put himself out there because he is in such a good spot. He might not want to win it, but I don't know. Part of me thinks that he might too. Listening to him talk about it, I'm not completely sold on the fact that he would actually win this competition, but I think it's going to come down to one of those two to win it.
I mean, I think Sis will have a great shot, and I think she's the most boring.
She's the next one on there. Yeah. Oh my gosh, it would be terrible. But hey, maybe we actually see something out of her. Maybe she can prove why she should be an Instagram, influencer. Maybe this is the week we see the Sis Instagram moment.
Yeah. Well, I mean, another thing that came out of this conversation is that the target list has flipped a little bit again, and Nick is letting Nick is becoming the bigger target over Sam at the moment. I think this is again a situation where if they are targeted, then it will be Nick and Sam on the block, and when they're on the block together, people might start to consider, well, Nick is not as much of a threat, especially in competitions, and then Sam might go home first, and then so on and so forth. But one of the reasons why, to be clear, is that Christy likes Sam, and she knows that he likes the game, and she would prefer to have Sam in jury than Nick or Jackson. And so that's why Christy would like Nick or Jackson to leave first and have Sam come into the jury. So there are a lot of different options here, a lot of different ways that this can go, and I think this game is a lot more fluid than most people were giving it credit for, myself included, even just a few days ago. So I don't know. I'm looking forward to next week.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to actually having some kind of competition to watch on the live feeds. At least we're getting that. Like, I thought that was going to happen last week. It didn't happen. But yeah, no, this week, at least look forward to having that surprise waiting for us on Thursday night.
Yes. All right. So anything else you wanted to bring up, Bobby?
No, I think we covered it all. I did much better this time, not being able to say yeah, no. So I did it one time, but I caught myself. So I'm working on it, people. But thank you for bringing it to my attention, and thanks for having me on, Taran. I appreciate it.
Of course. You can find me on Twitter at Armstrong Taran if you want to see my tweets. And you can find me on Instagram, Taran_Armstrong. Can if you want to help me become an Instagram influencer, or you know what, Sis wants to be an Instagram influencer. I feel like Orwell can give her some advice. Orwell, as we all know, has quickly become a social media sensation, and so make sure you support Orwell on Instagram and Twitter as well. And you can find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/Taran Armstrong. Bobby, where can people find you?
You can find me at Goodsby Bobby. Also, check out my podcast. It's a sports podcast for ESPN. It's called Club in the Goods, and you can find it on my Twitter, and it's broadcast live every Monday at 10 p.m. on YouTube.
All right, there you go. I will be back, of course, tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Eastern to update you on everything that happens today on the Big Brother 21 live feeds. And tonight, we will be live to recap the Wednesday night episode of Big Brother 21. Tomorrow night, I will be on with Caitlin and Rob to recap the eviction of Big Brother 21 on Thursday night. And that's what we have for you. Thank you so much for joining us. I'll see you next time.